Hello and welcome to the show. Now, the VW Campervan is by far one of the slowest vehicles on Forza 6. It weighs £2,500. To be fair, surprisingly lighter than I was expecting it to be. However, it has just a mere 50 horsepower. Its sort of power to weight ratio is far worse than the Fiat 595s and so on. So yeah, it's not exactly a fast vehicle. However, we went racing with some stock ones on Horizon 2 and it turned out to be an awful lot of fun. So would it still be as entertaining on Forza 6 when we take them to some proper race circuits? Our first race would be at the Rio Mini Circuit. I do quite like this layout of track. It's a little too short for most cars, but these kind of rather slow vehicles make for the perfect kind of cars to tackle the circuit. Turn 1 would be everyone going too wide, pretty much 3 wide for a large part of the run down towards this next corner. The red Campervan having to duck back into line. The tyre bundle on the inside is not a particular place that you want to find yourself. You do not want to end up squeezed into that as we head now down towards the final corner. One of the biggest difficulties in all of this is overtaking. Because the cars are so slow, the braking zones are so very, very short. Trying to get overtakes done are very, very tough. The rusted car we are following here tried to get a cutback to the inside out of that final corner, but just brushed off the inside wall, lost a whole heap of momentum, and that allows the leader to pull a little bit of a gap, and now everybody is swarming over second place. Red car again was thinking about trying to get down the inside. There just wasn't quite space. The hippie van is going around the outside of turn 1, would keep himself in third place. It is around the outside for the next corner. Didn't look like he could quite do it. However, the car on the inside, big two-wheeled moment. These rather high-riding vehicles, very, very easy to roll over. Wasn't quite expecting completely standard ones, though, to have as many issues. It's a very, very big two-wheeled moment for the poor rusted camper as it drops through the order. It is now stuck going 3 wide into the final turn, and being on the outside, it's not really quite where you want to be as the purple car makes his way through. Unfortunately, one of the vehicles up ahead did a very similar thing, just scraped the wall on the inside trying to get a cutback, and that would allow the rusted car to at least maintain one of the positions. But yeah, very, very easy. You make a little mistake, whether it be getting on 2 wheels or just you making a driving error, it was very, very easy to just kind of get passed by everyone. It's going to sound quite odd, but you have to concentrate incredibly hard with these vehicles. While they are not hard cars to drive, because there is just a train of vehicles behind you, one tiny mistake and everybody is going to come flying past, because you've got to make the most of every opportunity that you have to overtake the cars ahead. As the heavy van was going under fire, the red vehicle trying his very best to get to the inside. Really, the final corner was the best of the overtaking spots around this track. The run down towards turn 1, these things just don't particularly get up to speed. So the run down towards turn 1, the fact that it's a relatively long straight doesn't make a huge amount of difference for the speed. And cars were more likely to be able to hold it around the outside into this first corner, being a little bit more of an open corner. So yeah, kind of the critical place to get right in defending, and if you're going to go for an overtake, was that final turn. The leader, though, was being helped massively as the cars behind continued to fight with one another. The leader wasn't having to worry about defending, wasn't having to worry about overtaking, of course, so could just kind of run his own race and drive away from the field a little bit, as everyone back here is all diving, trying to find ways past one another. And that could often happen with these single-make races, even, you know, with faster single-make races. If the leader can kind of break away a little bit at the front, it's very hard for the cars further back to make a progress. However, the hippie van did break away from the big fight and was trying to chase down the leader. This kind of large group of cars continued throughout the race as you would expect them to, really. It did gradually spread out. It was more to do with cars fighting rather viciously and the odd little mistake here and there between cars. You know, if you go for an overtake and can't quite make it stick, you lose a lot of time with these. You lose that little bit of momentum with these vehicles, and yeah, you are in quite a lot of trouble. As the cars ahead of this battle were about to find out, the purple car tried to get a pass done, but in doing so, they both ended up out wide, and that cost them, a lot of time. This group of 3 vehicles were catching up. The 88 is trying to get himself to the inside towards the final turn, just about gets his camper alongside. Now, rather long and quite, well, I say it's rather long. It's not a particularly long straight. It feels like a very long straight in these cars, and you've really got to make sure you've got that momentum out of the hairpin. The 88 was just a little too tighter a line through that corner and couldn't quite get the run off of the turn. The red vehicle just about able to hang on to the position, but it's very much bumper-to-bumper racing, and sure enough, a little bit too much of bumper-to-bumper there, as the small nudge cost the car a huge amount of momentum. That would allow the rainbow vehicle to find a way past, although now they're running out towards the wall. The red car's in trouble once again through that section. Cars behind are battling 2 and 3 wide. I unfortunately was very much out of this race after the vehicle I was following through the tyre bundles. I was about, I don't know, a few centimetres behind it. He hit the tyre bundle, I hit him, and both of us were quite broken. So yeah, I was out of this race. Only 2 of us were broken though in this one, and these guys were just continuing battling. And this is why this kind of racing is so much fun, with the exception of the 2 of us being broken. Didn't matter where you were in the field. Didn't matter if you were at the front or if you were mid-pack or where you were racing door to door, bumper to bumper with somebody. At the front, as we saw, the leader did manage to get a little bit of a breakaway. Second place, though, was still very much on. This is on the final lap. The hippie van left a gap on the inside, and you just can't get away with that at this final corner, because that is really the best chance, the only chance you're going to get to make an overtake. The white car would get second. The hippie van just hold on to third place from the car behind. And this was, further back in the field. Still, the fighting was going on. The 88 had got a little bit wide out of a corner. He'd brushed the wall and had slowed down, allowing the pink camper to catch up as they head towards this final corner. The pink car goes incredibly defensive on the inside. The wide line around this hairpin hadn't worked all day. You'd watched a few cars trying to make a move stick around the outside. Nobody had got it right. However, this time out, the pink car had been take such a tight line, and been so slow off of the corner that it allowed the white car to just get the place. That's pretty close. Not quite the closest photo finish we've ever had, but certainly not far off at all. I also love how, these guys were battling. This was mid-pack, I think about 8th place. Cars behind, they were still going too wide and so on towards the line. It was a lot of fun, despite the vehicles themselves not being amazingly entertaining to drive. The fact that you were racing so close with so many cars is what makes this kind of very silly racing awfully entertaining. As second race, we would go to the Catalunya club circuit. So again, another relatively short track. This one, though, a little bit more in the way of overtaking opportunities, a little bit bigger braking zones, and some more challenging corners for the campervans. The start of the race, much cleaner. This time out, no tyre bundles for people to get stuck into. However, we would quickly learn of a problem. These curbs are not particularly bad around Catalunya. However, the campervans are bad for wanting to roll over, and sure enough, we were going to see a very common theme, that the curbs caused quite a lot of mayhem. The rusted van yet again getting himself a long way up on 2 wheels, and this being the very start of the race, well, there are a lot of cars ready to try and find a way past. While the top 3 were busy running away, this is just a crazy collection of cars. Outside of sort of NASCAR at Daytona, you're not really going to see this many vehicles racing, admittedly not racing very fast, but still, pushing the cars as hard as you can, and this is such a huge collection of cars in such a tiny piece of racetrack as we plough in towards the first corner. We're 4 wide at one point. Unfortunately, a purple camper gets into trouble. Not quite sure I ended up on 2 wheels, but got spat out of the first corner either which way, and now we're going solidly 2 by 2 down towards the next corner. I found myself stuck on the outside. It's a long way to go around there. The pink camper's up onto two wheels. The vehicle ahead had, I think, a big two-wheel moment, was very slow off the corner, so me and the rusted camper tried to mug him on the way to the next corner. The green car could not quite make it around the outside. 3 wide there was unlikely to work. I immediately get punished for my good overtake and end up on 2 wheels and out wide on the grass. The blue car is then even more on 2 wheels and has to go across the curbing and the kind of the S-bends there, and would just about recover. I'd somehow managed to hold off the rusted car. I didn't think I would through all of that section, and now this group of cars still going 4 wide almost, trying to get down the start-finish straight. The white vehicle just about has to back out of that one when realised there isn't going to be any space. I'm stuck in the middle up towards the first corner. Not really the ideal position here. The blue car, fortunately, a little too far back. I can run very, very deep into this first corner trying to defend. In the end, I think the car on the inside ran a little bit too much across the grass and across the curb, slowed him down ever so slightly. But still, there's 6, 7, 8 cars in this group that were all racing. We're racing as hard as we can with these rather silly vehicles, and it's an awful lot of fun, and a huge amount of concentration goes into just trying to keep these cars on the road, knowing where everybody is around you and just not making that little mistake, as I get a massive two-wheel moment at the wrong point and all of my positions are evaporating at that particular point. These two are back to going side by side through these next couple of corners. You've got to be so careful across the curve. We've not really learned our lesson, and the problem is when you're racing, you're trying to gain that little advantage. Yes, the curbs are a little dangerous, but you kind of still want to take that line because you're hoping that you can make that few tenths advantage somewhere. So yeah, we were still being a little bit risky. They might have gone too wide through these corners up front, but further back they were trying to fit 3 cars into the same space. Just everywhere you looked throughout the field, there was always somebody to be racing against, somebody to be overtaking from, defending from, and having 3 or 4 cars trying to fit into, well, a single corner. And that's kind of why I love racing these slow, very, very ridiculous vehicles, because you get just utterly crazy racing. This purple car stuck on the outside did not get a particularly good run down the start-finish straight. Is going to very much get hung out to dry towards turn 1. Does get brave, though. Carries a lot of speed, and you really didn't need to. It was a dab on the brakes. After the first few laps, once you kind of got the confidence with the cars, it was a small dab on the brakes into turn 1, and you kind of just turn in and let the sort of friction do the braking almost for the car. It was an inevitability, though, especially with us and these vehicles having had big problems with going on 2 wheels. Someone would end up on their side, and sure enough, I was not expecting the cars. Like, we'd seen them go up onto 2 wheels, not massively surprising, but I wasn't quite expecting, is it completely standard, remember, campervans to end up rolling over completely on their own across a curb somewhere. So yeah, that was something to watch out for. At the front, while it wasn't quite as crazy as it was further back, these 3 were all very, very close together. There was no kind of big overtaking opportunities, not a huge amount of swapping places, as the 88 a little bit on 2 wheels just starts lifting up across those curves. There's no kind of, big overtakes going on. It was very hard to get an overtaking opportunity with such evenly matched cars, but as I said, you certainly couldn't afford to make a mistake. You couldn't afford to run wide when you've got cars so close behind you. So yeah, a lot more concentration was required for racing these than you would perhaps expect, and much like we had seen at Rio, again, wherever you looked in the field, somebody was racing someone, trying to make up position. We often kind of found trios of cars racing against each other, and of course, as soon as you start racing hard against other vehicles, you do start slowing yourself down, and that's how the groups kind of end up breaking apart a little bit. Still many a 2-wheeled action for these vehicles. The black camper getting a big 2-wheel moment through the high-speed chicane. It was, we were trying to not roll the vehicles because we were trying to race properly, but as I said, you were still pushing the cars hard, still trying to make up every little bit of time that you could, and yeah, that often meant being a bit brave with the curbs. Most of the time, if they did go up on their side, they were perfectly controllable, and you didn't really end up losing time as such. It was just if you ended up rolling it, not so good, but sometimes you get on 2 wheels and end up out wide in the grass. at the front, and it was the Fallout camper that would go on to take victory. Managed to get a little bit of a breakaway. Second place had made a mistake and dropped back, and they started running very, very close with one another, and as soon as that happens, you're starting to lose that little bit of time. So in the closing few laps, our leader would have a little bit more of a lonely race, and yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of overtaking between the top three. However, they had spent a large amount of the race running very, very close together, and despite the craziness of our opening lap, the sort of 4th, 5th, and all of us lot were not actually that far back. The closing lap of the race, of course, everyone trying to go for that extra position or two was pretty... This was the battle for about 15th, 16th place on the track, and they were still very much going for it. The green camper really tried to make it stick around the outside. That's a tough place to go around the outside in normal cars, but in these sort of vehicles, you're always likely to end up in trouble. But, you know, final lap, you kind of got to go for it. It almost worked out for him. Just ran out of grip. The purple car is looking for a way past, but again, the outside of that final corner is just not quite going to work. It's right on the bumper as they come down towards the start-finish line, but there's very little that you can do now at this stage. It's incredibly close, but yeah, can't do anything about the car ahead. The driver car, though, he'll get the overtake done as they come through the first corner here. So, yeah, incredibly exciting despite being incredibly slow. Pretty much is the way that the racing went with these cars. Yeah, you know, they're not fast at all. I don't think you were seeing much more than sort of 60, 70 miles an hour. But because they weren't massively fast, you could run massive packs of 6, 7, 8 cars for a good few laps. You just absolutely door to door, and it's a slightly different kind of racing and a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it. Get a big group of these together, and you will have a lot of fun racing them. There will probably be cars rolling over, because, well, that's just kind of how the campers are, really. But, yeah, despite not being massively fast vehicles, they're not the greatest cars to drive, let's face it. When you put enough of them together, do you have as close racing as we did with all of this? Yeah, they are surprisingly entertaining. And, of course, something had to roll over. So, it is a proper FailRace video. However, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.